Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skyer. We begin with the latest on the U.S. proposed peace plan for Ukraine. German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul says the Geneva meeting delivered a decisive success, stressing that the peace plan no longer includes any provisions affecting NATO or Europe. Minister Wadephul insisted no deal can be reached over the heads of Europeans and Ukrainians. His remarks followed 2 days of talks in Geneva, where U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators worked to adjust the leaked 28-point proposal, which had faced criticism in both Kyiv and European capitals. Washington called the discussions highly productive, though several points still need to be resolved before anything is presented to Russia. Now, following Sunday's opening round of U.S.-Ukrainian talks in Geneva, President Zelenskyy spoke out, saying that a lot is changing. He did emphasize that as negotiations resume today, Monday, the American delegation is beginning to understand the key arguments put forward by Ukraine's diplomats.
Now there was a report from the delegation on the results of the talks, and these were thorough talks. A lot is changing. We are working very carefully on the steps that are needed to end the war. Negotiations in Switzerland will continue today. The teams will actually work until night, and there will be more reports from them. It is important that there is a conversation with American representatives, and there are signals that President Trump's team can hear us.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, what did he say on that matter? Well, that substantial progress has been made in hammering out the details of that plan. But for now, he's keeping those details under wraps because the discussions are still ongoing.
Well, I'm not going to get into the details on the issues. This is a very delicate moment, and it's important. Like I said, there's not agreement on those yet. Some of it is semantics or language. Others require higher level decisions and consultation. Others, I think, just need more time to work through. As an aside, I will mention that there were items that we were discussing as part of the original 28, it evolved. This is a living, breathing document. Every day with input, it changes. There were some that involved equities or the role of the EU or of NATO or so forth. And those we kind of segregated out because we just met with the national security advisors for various European countries. And those are things we'll have to discuss with them because it involves them. So we sort of really focused on the ones that were bilateral in nature for the most part. So there are a couple, none of it insurmountable. I can tell you that the items that remain open are not insurmountable. We just need more time than what we have today. I honestly believe we'll get there.
Now, while U.S. and Ukrainian delegations were holding those negotiations in Geneva, Russian forces launched a massive drone attack on Kharkiv. Kharkiv's regional authorities say the strike killed at least 4 people and injured at least 17 more. The governor of the Kharkiv region, Oleg Sinyahubov, says the injured include 2 children aged 11 and 12. The strikes damaged 3 residential buildings and an energy infrastructure facility, all of which caught fire in the aftermath of the strike. It's the latest assault on the region in just days. On November 18, a 17-year-old girl was killed and 9 others were injured in an overnight Russian missile attack on the city of Berestin. A crucial summit of African and European countries kicks off on Monday in Angola's capital of Luanda. The European Union wants to counter Russian influence in Africa and seal new energy deals as it seeks to phase out Russian oil imports. But now, before the summit is set to begin, an informal meeting between EU leaders to address the peace plan will take place at 10:30 CET. Maciej Wilowski reports.
As the world's great powers compete for influence in Africa, Europe wants to get in on the game. Starting on Monday, Angola will host the 7th summit between the European and African Unions amid celebrations marking the country's 50th anniversary of independence from Portuguese colonial rule. The event will come a day after this year's G20 summit, also held on the African continent in Johannesburg, South Africa. Europe will likely seek to expand its ties with Africa amid rising Chinese and Russian influence on the continent. China, in particular, has ramped up its presence in Africa in recent decades, with foreign direct investment up more than tenfold since the start of the century. So has Russia, mainly by selling weapons to African governments in exchange for natural resources, or by deploying mercenaries like the Wagner Group to fight in regional conflicts. At a summit in Rome earlier this year, European leaders pledged to ramp up investments in Africa.
We have just witnessed the conclusion of 5 very important agreements, bringing over 1.2 billion euros of investment and guarantees to Africa.
Angola, the site of tomorrow's summit, is strategically important for its role as a major oil and gas producer. That could serve as the basis for discussions on energy ties as Europe seeks to diversify its energy supplies away from Russian oil. At the initiative of European Council President Antonio Costa, EU heads of state will also discuss Ukraine at the sidelines of the conference. Increased ties between Europe and Africa could positively impact both continents and strengthen Europe's influence on the world stage. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
On Sunday, Sinisa Karan, an ally of the former pro-Russian president Milorad Dodik, won the snap presidential election in Bosnia's Republika Srpska. The elections were seen as a crucial test of support for Dodik's nationalist party, which has held power in the region for almost 2 decades. Now, according to preliminary results, Sinisa Karan won almost 51% of the vote, while his opponent from the Serb Democratic Party received almost 48%. Milorad Dodik's close ally will serve in his post for less than a year until general elections in the region, which are scheduled for October 2026. Dodik stepped down as president of Republika Srpska in August 2025 after being convicted of failing to comply with the peace agreement, which kept Bosnia united since the end of the war in the 1990s. The pro-Russian leader of the Bosnian Serbs received a sentence of 1 year in prison and a 6-year ban on holding government positions. While pro-Russian Sinisa Karan celebrated his victory in yesterday's early presidential elections, while Republika Srpska's main opposition party said it will not accept the results. The acting head of the Serb Democratic Party claimed the presented results are false, and based on data from the polling stations, the elections were fraudulent.
We do not accept or recognize their victory because the results of the election tell a completely different story. The figures they presented are far from true. Data from the field, based on all polling stations counted, confirm that another major electoral fraud took place today in Republika Srpska.
Slovenians rejected plans to legalize assisted dying for adults with certain terminal illnesses in a nationwide referendum on Sunday. According to near-complete results released by the Slovenian Electoral Commission, some 43% of people voted against the new law. Now, the law stated that mentally competent people with no chance of recovery or facing unbearable pain have the right to assisted dying. Patients would administer the lethal medication themselves after getting approval from 2 doctors and following a period of medical consultations. The law, however, did not apply to mentally disabled. Opponents of the legislation, led by right-wing activist Ales Primic, however, forced yesterday's vote on the issue after collecting more than 40,000 signatures. Sunday's outcomes means that the existing law is now suspended. The airport in Vilnius was forced to suspend operations on Sunday night after balloons were detected flying in its direction. Lithuanian authorities state the incident marks yet another instance of hybrid attacks on the country's infrastructure. However, we have news now that the airport has just reopened. Now, temporary restrictions over Vilnius airport went into effect shortly before 2 a.m. local time and remained in place for 3 hours. Now, it was the second shutdown that day. The Lithuanian airport already suspended operations earlier in the evening, also because of balloons, with restrictions in force until midnight. According to Lithuanian authorities, the balloons are being sent from Belarus by cigarette smugglers, and the blame lies with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Finland, one of NATO's newest members, shares a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia and has been attacked by Moscow in the past. With Russia's belligerent attitude, Finland now strives to boost its defenses along the border, using some of Poland's experiences in containing the border crisis. Gabriela Jalonek reports.
Right behind me, you can see 4.5-meter border fence. We are on the Finnish-Russian border. When another part of the Finnish border fence is already completed, but it's not just a fence and piece of metal. It's full of technical and radio technical surveillance with all the equipment that is necessary to follow those who want to illegally on non-registry cross the border.
Includes ground net which goes under the ground, and then the net itself, and then the barbed wire on top of the fence to prevent the climbing. There is technical surveillance masts about 50 meters, so you can see in the dark also. There is a camera, of course, and ear light and speakers also, and normal light. We have other capabilities systems to take down the drones which are not allowed to fly in the borderline.
This part of the fence in Lapland is a little bit improved than the other part which was built on the south of Finland. This happened after communication and training in Poland and taking the lesson from the Polish-Belarusian border, where Finnish border guards had the opportunity to consult the construction of the border fence to be more effective.
We have got the information or experience from Poland and Latvia, and for example we have made smaller holes to the fence to prevent the stones and sticks going through the fence line.
Here on the Finnish-Russian border, also Frontex officers are supporting the border surveillance, and as well, both men and women can come here for voluntary training and to train themselves in the winter conditions, as you can see, how it is to work as a border guard and to protect the EU and NATO border. From Finland, Lapland, for TVP World, Gabriela Jalonek.
The first recorded case of death from a rare strain of bird flu is believed to have occurred in Grays Harbor, some 125 kilometers southwest of Seattle. American authorities claim the incident doesn't pose a wider threat to public health. The victim, described as an older adult with underlying health issues, has been hospitalized since early November after developing a high fever, confusion, and respiratory issues. Health officials said the person kept a flock of domestic poultry in his backyard that had been exposed to wild birds. The strain of avian influenza believed to have killed the person is called H5N5 and is not believed to be a greater threat to human health than the H5N1 virus, behind a wave of 70 reported human infections in the U.S. in 2024 and 2025. And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.